The community's always, a critical player in all of our projects, and it gets often asks, of us, how do you engage the community, or should we engage the community? And I can't imagine doing a project without engaging the community. And these are the people that live in the place that we're working within. They know it better than anybody else, and so we like to actually engage them from the very beginning of the project, any stakeholders, in fact, because we're trying to learn, at the beginning, and so of course people that live in the environment, can help us learn very quickly, and sometimes what they'll do is tell us where not to go, and what the sort of dangers are, or the sacred ground, or where the sacred ground is, on a project. So thinking back, you may have seen our Stoddard School there, and it still sticks in my mind. One of the first meetings with the community there, I think the first statement was, be careful of the trees. It was a wooded site in the middle of a neighborhood here, a heavily wooded site in the District of Columbia. So people thought it was very special because of that sort of woodland quality that it had. So okay, now we understand what the parameters are, for the design, that we should start to work with, and that makes our job that much easier to do if we know, what we should be careful with, and what is really special, to the community to begin with. But it also, those kinds of things, start to make the design unique, right? Rather than just sort of implementing the last building that you did, and in some fashion back on that site. Now Stoddard, even the plan of the building, is deferential to the most significant and signature trees, on the site, and. So you can draw a direct correlation from one of the first sentences the community told us to the final product there in its most simple form. But there's lots of other examples, like at Dunbar High School. There's such a rich history, to the first African American high school in the country, going back to the 1880s, and so the alumni, for example, were still in the community and very actively engaged in the design process. So the question was, how do we celebrate, this tremendous history, and the hundreds of incredibly accomplished people that had graduated from that institution back into the architecture, so that the building in some ways represented the history and heritage of the place, but wasn't a museum in some ways. It suggested to the students, that were living in the building now, that you're part of this tradition, and and you're within this context, and if you play your cards right, ultimately you could be celebrated within the building, just as these other people are too. So sort of two very different examples of input that came from the community that we were working within, but that I think had huge impact on the success and the quality of the designs that came forward. And then to even think about another example, we do a lot of international schools as well, and we were fortunate enough to work with a school just outside of Munich recently, and one of their key buildings, their signature buildings, is a building called the Schloss, which in German means castle. So you can imagine what this building looks like. It's got frescoes and gold leaf all over the interior, and so we were working in our initial workshop with the stakeholders there, trying to figure out, well, what do we do with a building like this? How does this inspire what we're trying to do? Because clearly, we're not doing Rococo architecture, but there was a young student, a fifth grader, who came up with the inspiration, and she said, well, look, this building's got these fabulous, huge wooden staircases. It's one of the signature design elements, in the interior of the building. Can we do something like that, in the new building? And so that's another one of those sort of lightning bolt moments when you're working with a community that says, absolutely, we can, absolutely do something like that. And, and that, again, is, one of those generative ideas, in design that, you can see directly in the final product. So in many ways, those are the kinds of things we're looking for, is help us inspire the design, and and where can we take this that it's special and unique.